Our next speaker is actually two speakers, Volodymyr and Krisha. Krisha is a grade 11 student who wants to pursue a career in psychology.
That's the study of the mind.
Okay. And Volodymyr is a grade 11 student who wants to work in economics.
That's money.
I think they got that. Don't worry about it. Everybody give it up for Volodymyr and Krisha.
Jenga, Jenga. You take a block from the bottom and you put it on top. You take a block from the middle and you put it on top. That's how you build a tower. You just don't stop. It teeters and it totters as you build it all up. It weebles and it wobbles, but you don't give up. You take a block from the bottom and you put it on top. You take a block from the middle and you put it on top. One knocks it over, and that's when you stop. But you start all over, putting blocks on top. In case any of you thought that I was being a lunatic, that was a reference to an 80s Jenga ad. I promise it's relevant. Today, I want to take you on a journey of consequences. Essentially, how do the smallest decisions influence our lives? Everything you do today will impact your tomorrow. Now, I can already hear the internal groans coming from all of you just at the mention of consequences. It's like the universal sign for a lecture about to be unleashed. So, before I lose any of you to parental lecture flashbacks, let's talk about something a little more lighthearted. Do you remember as kids, we used to set up Jenga blocks or dominoes for fun? Well, I don't know about you, but I used to eagerly anticipate the moment that I got to knock them over. The soft thud of each block as it settled into place, and the occasional clatter as one slipped out of alignment. Now think of these blocks as our decisions. These can be life-altering or spur-of-the-moment decisions. When dominoes fall, they cascade, and we can see a domino effect take place. Now this suggests that one effect or action can result in a collapse. But when we think of consequences, we often think of negative actions met with negative consequences, usually in the form of karma or punishment. Now, that is not always the case. So let me share a little story. On the first day of 9th grade, we had to split up on opposite ends of the field based on our last name to get a tour of the school. Now, me being me, I went to the wrong side of the field, and I just stayed there because the field was just too big to walk across again, to be honest. During the tour, I was approached by a girl, and she asked me, "Do you want to be friends?" She doesn't sound like that. Funnily enough, this reminded me of how kindergartners make friends. They carry simplicity and innocence to when they make friends. Or it could have just been the fact that she didn't have any friends, nor did I, so it was like two loners coming together to be loners together. In the end, I said yes. And this spur-of-the-moment answer led me to an extraordinary friendship with her that lasts to this day. All because I stayed on the wrong side of the field, technically breaking the rules, but it resulted in a positive outcome. Sometimes, forging positive habits can bring great results, better than you may expect. In my house, I have a reputation for being late for anything and everything possible. Like, I probably would have been late to this talk if I hadn't stayed over at school. Let's take a simple example. We all like to hit the snooze button, right? I do it one too many times. Because, who doesn't like extra sleep? But as the saying goes, my decision to sleep in can snowball into chaos. Before you know it, I'm skipping breakfast, I'm running late, basically just starting the day on the wrong foot. Now, one day late may not lead to immediate consequences. However, if this happens repeatedly, like me, it can result in some unhealthy habits starting to form. But hey, even if you're late to school one day, maybe you learn how to create new excuses for a teacher on the fly, Creativity at its finest. So far, we've only been talking about consequences that affect ourselves. But what about other people? Well, if we look at the chain reaction philosophically, we can see that consequences reinforce social norms, especially the good ones. Negative actions are met with negative consequences, and we can gain insight into what traits a society may value and what is and isn't acceptable. A great example of this is Japanese schools. Japanese schools don't have any janitors, and rather, they encourage their students to allocate chores to clean up their own respective classrooms. Now, when I first stumbled upon this fact, I was really confused. I thought it was I didn't understand the purpose of it. But, however, I went to Tokyo last year, and despite being the biggest city in the world, it was incredibly clean. I mean, I didn't see a single cigarette butt or a plastic bag on the floor. Also, they don't have a concept of trash cans. So whatever garbage you may have, you have to carry in your hand or carry in your bag until you got back home, to your hotel, or to a mall. Now with this information, we can see that Japanese society highly values cleanliness and respect for public spaces. And we can see this ingrained in them as children, and it translates into a collective societal value to clean up public spaces. Now, as we come to an end of my speech, the next time you're faced with a choice, I implore you to think, will the next choice I make my younger self look up to who I am today? Thank you.
Hello everyone. Can everyone stand up, please? Okay, it's just to make sure you listen. You can sit down. Consequences. What do you associate this word with? You're welcome to answer. Just raise a hand and answer. Okay. Anyone else?
Outcomes.
Okay. Some ideas?
Actions.
Okay, that makes sense. I agree, but as for me, consequences are such a common fancy word to describe something important, something simple but increase its importance, and to make some usual fact sound like a burden. But also, consequences are life. Since life is a sequence of decisions, then that decisions you make you make more other decisions, and how messy it turns out that may influence your life, life of others, or even history. So I'll begin with a short dive into history. In 1899, Henri Poincaré solved the three-body problem, unsolvable at that time. He momentarily became famous, received awards, glory, and all the benefits of famous life. His solution was published in books, and one editor of the books found a small mistake that would destroy the whole solution, and that editor talked about it. So you may imagine what happened next, and the whole Poincaré's career was destroyed, and it had notorious influence on the world of mathematics in general. He tried to recover a solution, find a mistake, and resolve the whole problem, but he never made it. So 8 years later, he published, in 1907, he published a book called Chaos, where he describes cause-effect as a random movement that is so small to notice that can only be called a chance. As an example, he gives a theory that fraction of an inch in meeting male and female cells can lead to birth of a Napoleon or an imbecile. And that's a chaos of outcomes and probabilities, but it's like that. And now I want to talk about something more common to, I think, everyone in the room, is how your parents, ever since your childhood, allowed you to make some decisions, like what are you wearing today, or what are you eating on breakfast today? And I'm sorry to say that decisions had almost no importance. But then, step by step, the importance of that decisions grew. And By that, your parents taught you a valuable lesson of responsibility. Responsibility is when you're honest, at least to yourself, about causes of your actions and outcomes of your actions. That's a valuable lesson that not everyone learns. And that's important for life. For example, what profession are you choosing? Or how do you spend your money? Or when are you getting married? And how do you spend your life in general? It's the matter of your decisions and you taking responsibility for its consequences. So, decisions, consequences. Every decision has its own consequences. And even a decision not to make any decisions has its own consequences, how messy it wouldn't sound. But consequences, when you do some action, you mutually agree to all outcomes that follow, whether you foresee them or not. And that's how consequences are included in actions themselves. And now when I sound like my parents, I want to give an example. So let's imagine a situation that you didn't come here of your own free will. Maybe you were persuaded by friends or kids to go here. And maybe you had an idea of becoming an artist, but some speech here will impress you so much that you'll change your mind and decide to become a politician, or vice versa if the speech is boring. But in any case, in that imaginary situation, it's not because of you're here. It's not because of you have this idea and listening to the speeches. But it'll be your choice and your decision whether you want to follow this idea or not, and you'll take responsibility for all its consequences of either your decision. And to sum up our two speeches about consequences, here you heard a revealing of consequences from two different points of view, in two different ways, and none of us can tell you how to make decisions that will always be good and influential for you. But here's the quote that will make you think about it yourself. Don't promise when you're happy, don't answer when you're angry, and don't decide when you're sad. Zaid Abdelmur. Thank you.